Welcome back, everybody. It is time for the Sci-Fi Hour featuring Robbie
Calibration, measurements and calibration. You must listen to measurements and calibration. What's up, everybody?
Who out there can name that movie? For the folks that are coming in late, there it is.
That's classic. That's Robbie.
Yeah, but they got to come. They got to remember the movie name. The
movie's awesome. It's a little audio fact. There's an alien race that one of the best amplifier brands ever in history was named after. Krell, the ultimate power in the universe.
I have never heard of the Krell.
Yeah, that's what Dan DiAgostino originally named Krell after, is the alien race in that movie.
Oh, right on. I didn't realize that was the name of. I got to go back and watch it again, or maybe for the first time. I don't know. But everybody out there, welcome. It is Tuesday night, and it's time for another episode of Theater Tech Talk Live, whatever we call it, with Don and Jiles, or Jiles and Don, however you want to think about it. We are here to talk about all the fun things that we love, and that includes home theater, hi-fi, 2-channel, multi-channel, amplifier, speakers, and all those things, hi-fi and video.
We got all the channels up in here. That's right.
And I mean, even a little bit of Robotech right here for the Robotech fans. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about right there.
Nerdy. Talk nerdy to me.
I know. And of course, you can see all my stuff back there. I've got a whole bunch of books, and I mean, that's another conversation for another time. But we got some folks joining. So we got Van Gool up in the house. Was that Van Gool? We got Nicholas Rumenos.
What's up, Nick? My man.
Nick's in the house.
Nick's the man.
Got Jason Marin up in the house.
What's up? What's up, J-Dog?
Showing off that pickup truck.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Jiles and Don. So I think we're just gonna get into it and start talking about stuff, and we'll see where the conversation takes us. But the two topics I had out there tonight were, Don said, let's talk a little bit about digital DSP, room correction, auto room correction, and is that
just the robot?
You could get that. What's the other robot that does like this all the time?
That's the Lost in Space robot, which was based on Robbie.
Yeah, Danger Real.
From the movie Forbidden Planet.
That's right, because you
Probably
can't go to
the
that
first
planet.
really kick-ass sci-fi movie with good special effects ever. It was a monumental film. I've seen it 20 times. It's great.
Abominus Black is with us. Oprah Winfrey up in the house. Good to see you guys. And all you folks watching, I see the numbers, but I don't see you commenting. Get your butt up in here. So 2 topics: digital room correction. Should we bow to our robot overlords or not? Right? Is there another way? And then last week I dropped or Saturday or Sunday, whenever it was, dropped a home theater tour video for the current state of affairs here in the Giles McCoy basement home theater. And if there are any questions about that, I can answer those. I've already answered a ton. So I don't know if you guys watched it. Hopefully you saw that one. And if there's anything out there other than, no, I'm not pulling the center channel up to the edge of the furniture, we'll be happy to talk about that and answer questions. But Don, so what's up with this hating on auto room correction?
Not hating on it.
It sounded like you're hating on it.
So how we did things back in the day. Let me tell you about back in the day. Back in the day, when we did theaters, and when I say back in the day, it's the later 90s into the early 2000s. Pardon me. I had sushi in a little burpee.
Oh, sounds delicious. I can smell it too. It's nice.
Fishy. So back in the day when we did theaters, we didn't know what we know now. I mean, we knew a lot, went through THX training. THX isn't as relevant as it used to be, but it still should be, because modern home theaters, based on what Tomlin Holman and the crew at THX and whatnot really pioneered, back when it was Dolby Pro Logic and you had 3 front speakers and 2 rear speakers were mono, but then they pioneered the use of dipolar speakers to give you spaciousness. They came up with timbre matching, decoralization, re-equalization. Anyways, not to go on. But when we did rooms, we we were trendsetters. So we did acoustic treatments in rooms, but we hired other companies to do it. And which we're going to get into the room being such a critical piece that so little people talk about, because it's maybe not sexy as, you know, the newest
it's not as sexy as everything else.
It can be, but so we would use there was a product by Audio Control. I think it was called the Bijou or Rialto. I know they make, I don't know, they don't make it now, but basically it was a THX certified multi-channel manual PEQ. And we would do separates. I know my go-to separates for a long time were from a company called ADA, Audio Design Associates. And that was pre-AC3, which we now know as Dolby Digital, which is morphed into Dolby Digital Plus and yada, yada, yada. So we would take the Trustio RTA meter, like you did in car stereo and whatnot, another audio control product, and we would calibrate the rooms with, you know, a lot of times. So back in that time period, there wasn't the you had your hi-fi audio speakers. They were starting to come out with center channels, and most of them were dinky or just, it was a relatively new thing. However, we used a lot of THX certified speakers back then because they were all consistent. They were the same, even if they were, you know, in a more of a horizontal orientation. They had driver configurations and whatnot that would mimic that. And we would use those. We would usually do a 5.1, or we would do 2 subs. We understood bass to a point, but not the way we understand bass now. We would use 2 subs because we wanted more output. And, you know, what it turned out to be was it gave us a more unified or uniform bass experience in multiple seating positions. There was no Atmos. And then eventually that moved into 7.1 after that. You would do DVD players. We would over dampen, or the companies would over dampen their rooms so bad. Like, they were really bad. And, you know, over a period of time, we learned a little things that you learn when you do theaters for a living, and you do a lot of them. The end results of it, like most theater rooms, were brutal hot. They were just miserable to be in because there wasn't enough AC volume returns coming through it. More often than not, the equipment was located in that room or real close to it. Projectors weren't, you know, we did CRT projectors for a long time. I used to use Sony. They made a 50 and a 90 were my go-to. I did a brand that probably people don't remember unless you've been around a long time, called Vidicron. We did some Vidicrons, including a couple side-by-side dual Vidicron, because the brightness was really, compared to what you get now, was very low.
Right.
Very, very low. And a lot of 4x3 screens. I mean, that's what you had to deal with. But we did theaters and they were cool. Then over a period of time, I would say really in the last 10 to 12 years, that knowledge and understanding of, and there was always people like Keith Yates and, you know, Anthony Gramani, and people that were really on the cutting edge and really grasped designing a room and designing all this. John All from THX. But now you've started to see the proliferation. I say that right? That's
proliferation. No,
proliferation.
Proliferation.
A lot of shit. I'm from Kentucky. What do you want? So you have seen the digital measurement, which to me, REW in measuring has been the sauce. Like, that's the bottom line. With a good microphone, not the cheapest, you know, mini DSP mic, but a good microphone, a good stable stand for it, being able to run pulses through your room and see what your room's about. But really, you know, Yamaha had YPOW, which was early on, and it hasn't really changed much. I mean, YPOWs. And I'm really good friends with a lot of people at YPOW, but it's just not a good. If you have a Yamaha product, don't use YPOW. You're not really getting the best. I mean, you can use it for certain things, as we're going to get into, but then Odyssey came out, that I think Tomlinson Holman from THX was the pioneer behind Odyssey.
Oh, really? Right.
And it was revolutionary. So Odyssey was kind of the OG. And then they came out with, you know, enhanced versions of Odyssey, and they came out with the kits to measure with the nice microphones and whatnot. You know, forward to 2025, which is crazy, man. Like, that was science fiction territory when we were young. But you forward now, and it's all about, you know, Dirac, ARC. Odyssey. Sony's got a really good one. Everybody's got their sauce, this calibration. And they usually, some of them come with better mics. Most of them usually come with cheap plastic mics. I mean, I had a flagship Yamaha Pro. It had a piece of cardboard with a little puck mic on it. So what people tended to do, and as a professional integrator, you started to see a lot of people in my industry would just set up a system. They'd make a longer mic, because now we would always put the equipment into another room, because control systems would allow us to do that. Run the mic in, run that basic calibration, and be done with it. However, what we found, and this is not just for audio calibration, this is also for video calibration going way back, because I was having ISF certified guys come in and do video calibration in the early 2000s, when Joe Kane and Joe Silver kind of created the Imaging Science Foundation. People just didn't like the sound, right? They would go, I don't really hear the rears. And you could go into the whole, well, Mr. Customer, Hollywood spends millions of dollars to record, and there's only information in these speakers when it's called for, right? So what a client heard was, I just spent $10,000 on speakers. I want to hear them. That's the really real reality. And we would bump it up. We would adjust. We would calibrate it. Now, you could still do a hell of if you have REW to measure, right? And then you've got most of your better pre-pros, and including receivers, have PEQs built into them. You can do a whole lot with that. You really can. It in combination with mechanical, and when I say mechanical tweaking of the room, that's speaker placement, speaker calibration mechanically, and acoustic treatments, addressing the problems with the room. But we've fallen into, and I'm really good friends with several high-end calibrators. Really, Matthew Pose from Audioholics and Pose Acoustics. He's the smartest guy in the room, almost any room. He could be a NASA and being the smartest guy in the room. And he will tell you the calibration that you run from, ARC or Dirac or any of these systems will only take you so far, right? And they're not all completely accurate. Now, you can back them up and check them with REW. Dirac's a little more involved. You can do a lot of amazing things depending on the depth and detail of what they offer and what your pre-pros offer. And I'm not in any way knocking these systems. What I'm saying is, use them to take you to a certain point, then use your PEQ and try to play around with it and get the sound to where you like it. So the everybody wants that perfect curve, that beautiful curve in a room. But as in perfect curve and speaker measurements, or perfect amplification. But here's the deal. And this is just from experience, not only as a professional, but as an avid enthusiast. Make your system sound like you want it to sound. If you want a little more boost in the bass, add it. Who cares what the curve says? If there's problems where you're getting dips and things like that, great. You now have the tools to adjust that. But calibrate that sound. If your Atmos speakers, you don't hear them enough, bump them up. Who cares? It's your system. You paid for it. You get to enjoy it. And that's really what I wanted to just touch on, because I think people are so concerned about letting the overlord machines dictate what good sound should be. They're not really being honest with themselves. This room sounds kind of flat to me, because to me, that's what a really flat speaker in a really flat room sound like, dull, and that's subjective. Obviously, now it's, all these, big terms, subjective and objective and all that. What really matters is these, and I know it's a cop out and everybody says it, but it's the real reality. Make the system sound like you want to. Make the system, if you get it to a point where the machine says it's perfect and you don't like it, it ain't perfect.
I think that's all quite reasonable, but I want to take things from another point of view, and I want to see what you think about this. Right. So one of the things that I hear from a lot of people, that are, I don't know what the right classification is. So they're not super hardcore, right? So they don't necessarily want to kind of live and breathe the stuff.
Most people.
Right. But they also don't really have or want to spend the money on bringing in a calibrator and, having pro setup and that kind of stuff. So my advice to them is if you're not going to put a ton of time into it yourself, and you're not going to hire a pro to come in and do it, then 2 steps. 1, buy a processor or an AVR that's got a good room correction tool. Run that tool, listen to it, and then just tweak things the way you want it.
Yeah.
So
That's exactly what I'm saying.
My advice, right?
Yeah. I'm not saying not to use these, because microphones, good microphones, can hear things you just can't hear, and they can tell you things that no human being can hear. I know a lot of people claim to hear stuff.
Oh, I don't think they hear it either.
That not maybe as they claim. Some people have. I mean, I'm old, so my hearing is, I'm a firearms instructor my whole life, competition shooter. I've been in car audio competitively back in the day, and I've been in audio for over 30 plus years. I'm lucky to have what hearing I have. So I might like things different than you like. I might like a little boost in the highs, something to clear, cut through. I like a little more bass. They call it Audioholics. They joke with me. They call it the Donimus measurement, because I like
right.
Bass. I always have. Sean Olive from Harmon says it's because your testosterone's too high. Well, maybe it is. I don't know. But use a combination of the two. Don't be afraid. And most of the really good calibrators will ask their clients, the people they're paying them, what do you think? Now, I have to be very careful. Most people, including some avid hobbyists, might not know what to think. And here's why.
I hear that a lot. They're like, I don't know what it's supposed to sound like.
What's their point of reference, right? Say you're into the hobby, right? You spent $20,000, $30,000, whatever. You went to a couple hi-fi shops. You live in a big city, which is really hard to find anymore. What's your point of reference? Is it the movie theater? Because to me, movie theaters sound like shit. I mean, they're harsh. Maybe some of the better Dolby theaters and whatnot sound, like it's almost too much, because they're just, they don't tweak them, calibrate them, come back and do this and that. I like going to the movie theaters because it's a big giant theater, and I get out of the house and eat popcorn and sit down with my daughter or my girlfriend or a friend.
A big stadium. The stadium is what I like.
It is the experience. And now, I mean, I've got theaters by my house that have like dividers between the rows, like a wall, and leather seats with heated. I'm like, yeah, I'm big pimping, but and it's not a knock on people saying they're bad or inexperienced, but what's their point of reference? Me, I do it for a living. I go to audio shows. I get cases of equipment in here and go through and listen and test in a multitude of rooms and environments, which is something that people don't talk about much. But, what is their point of reference? Meaning it's all calibrated, a perfect sound curve. The point of reference should be enjoyment. If somebody calibrates your system and you pay them to do it, you should have a grace period for a tweak on it. Meaning, Matt Pose or somebody dials in remotely, which a lot of people do now. Brandon Hill and different guys are out there doing it. Some guys remotely and dials it in, and on a curve, on a chart, it looks great. Let the people live with it. Have them bring their kids and their wife and their spouse or whatever, some friends over. Listen to it. Listen to some demos quite a bit, and then have them and go, I felt like the surrounds were too much, or I felt like the biggest complaints that I get are they can't hear the Atmos, because a lot of times people will do big speakers and big side speakers and big surrounds and little bitty Atmos speakers. Mm-hmm. And granted, they are an effects speaker. They're not nearly as critical on the chain, but they do add an incredible element to it. And sometimes you got to bump those up and bump your mains down or bump your bed layer down. So I guess the point is, use your ears, use your experience, how you feel about it as your guide versus just a graph. Because I'm telling you, a lot of these flat, perfect rooms just don't sound perfect. That's just the bottom line.
So let's go over to the comments a bit and let's catch up, because we got a handful of here to talk through. All right, so let me see. Where do we get to? Van Gool says digital versus manual calibration. What is better? And that's what we're talking about. So we're getting through that.
But
go ahead.
listen, they're all digital. You have to use a digital element now to I mean, otherwise, what are you calibrating? I mean, I guess you could be like, back in the day, man, you just smoke a big spliff, dude, and just like make the smiley face and look at that, dude. It's like he's smiling at me, man. No, we're not saying don't trust the science. We're saying use a combination, because at the end, this is analog and we're analog and we're listening. And those are tools to help get us there. And, maybe get the bass dialed in, things that are super critical that people don't talk. You never hear people talk about phasing. Are your subs completely in phase with your main speakers? Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge deal. Some people, and some people might like them a little out of phase, right? It's a different sound. So I've had people take subs and put one in phase and one out of phase. And
Yeah, that's heresy.
That is heresy. How dare you? It's your stuff. Use it the way you want. I know we're always in this obsessive. And listen, dude, with my crew of audioholics, is like the conglomerate of AV nerds. Like, we're constantly talking. Teo, James Larson's, Matt Pose, and Gene himself. Gene spends a stupid amount of time on his Dirac in his room with his Storm Audio and his big theater, chasing the white horse, man. Like that first hit, and he loves it. I think a lot of the hobby, Jiles, is the pursuit of getting it. To whereas me, I was obsessed with that, and I still, to a point, I'll spend a lot of time moving a speaker at quarter inch, half inch, listening. Do you hear the difference, honey? My girlfriend, who's better hearing than me, and I'm guilty of it too. But at the end of the day, get it to where you like it and enjoy it, man, and use it. Don't obsess over it. And don't think that the computer and the chart and the graph is going to dictate your enjoyment, because it ain't. I'll tell you that right now. And that is not conjecture. That is just the truth of experience and seeing it and hearing it hundreds of times. Video calibration back in the day, now it's a different, ball game. Guys would come in and do ISF calibrations on, we did a lot of Runco projectors. And more often than not, when people would spend, $250, $350 or more, or $500 back in the day to have the ISF guys come in and set up, they come in and go like, it's not bright enough. Can you turn the brightness up? General people terms. Like, you talk about TVs versus projectors, right? I know I'm going to get, I make a living in a lot of ways putting projectors in. I love them, but there's no comparison to the picture on the best projector versus the best TV. There's just not. You can't create the nits, the light, the light output. You just can't, and your center channels. Shut up, dude. Really? I mean, yeah, if you're doing a big formal theater, I think people doing big formal theaters, like and I would say big formal theater would start at 20 wide by 25 deep, or 30, 25 wide, a big theater with multiple rows, with the intention of bringing a multitude of people in from specific movie or sports viewing, as an entertainment venue in a home or on a professional environment, right? I have a 10,000 square foot house. We entertain a lot. I want to have a big formal theater where multiple seating locations being addressed equally. And that's something I want to
where
talk
it becomes
about
important and useful.
Well, it becomes more important to that aspect of it. Whereas things like waveforming, which I think saps the bass impact a little bit, at least
it does. I mean, you got to have a lot of subwoofers to get output.
Just like my boy Shane Lee, he's walking around, he's like, oh, I got 3 dBs different here and this and that. I'm like, who gives a shit? Like, you got 6 seats in your theater. Who cares? Like, if they're a little off on the bass, I'm focused on me because I pay for this thing, or my family, or whatever. It's about what's important to you. So other people might look at that, but you got guys with 16 by 18 theaters worried about, it's just priorities, man. You know what I mean?
One thing I'll say is, until I decided that I wanted to do my room the way I wanted to do my room and did it that way, I was never really happy and I never super enjoyed it. But when I finally said, okay, enough of this. I've listened to all these other people talk about the way that they want to do things or the way they think it should be done. And I did it the way that I wanted to do it. Now it's night and day, the level
And
of
I did it
enjoyment.
my
Yeah, I
way.
mean, it really is,
I had a
not
tremendous
only
singing
for me,
voice.
but for my family too. We actually use the room now.
Bro, so I've got those Arendal 1528 speakers in. I've got the
Mhm.
tower and I've got the center. Kick-ass, amazing speakers. Love them. Think they're a disruptor. Think they're just a incredible value, but they're expensive. I know when you're in the world and once you start owning equipment and buying equipment, you upgrade, you get to that point where you're around high-end equipment all the time. And most people are like, oh my God, $9,500. But man, there's golf clubs that cost that much. You know what I mean? But when I first got them in, they were bright. They like it took some love, and that's most any speaker. I mean, there's some speakers that are easier to place, like a point source, like a Kef or a MoFi
Mhm.
or a Tannoy. Dispersion a little bit easier, a little bit more forgiving. But like any fine instrument, a really good speaker, as we talked about in a week before last about family room and positioning of speakers, critical. You could do tremendous amount of good for your sound quality doing that. But when I got those speakers in, I played with them. I thought they were bright. They were bright. They were a little bright. Now, here's another controversial subject, which to me is just retarded that it's controversial because it's not. Speaker break-in. I'm just going to go on the record, just like any other mechanical device in the world that has moving parts, your speaker has a break-in, period. And anybody that tells you it's a myth does not know what they're talking about.
What about cables?
I think cables are important to a point.
No.
I
I
think
mean, do they have break-in or not?
no, I mean, that's a bit much, dude. I mean, it's not a mechanical
No,
device.
I'm just asking. Yeah, I mean,
Listen, dude, I come from that old school audio, super tweaky. I don't know why this brightness keeps changing, but I come from that world. That's where, I mean, cables, lifters, like guys wearing acoustic smocks when they're listening, so the reflection doesn't bounce off their shoulders. You think I'm kidding? I think good cables are important. I think why would you buy a really badass sports car than put cheap tires on it or ugly tires? Gene is the big snake oil cable guy. If you can't measure it, don't exist. I just say bullshit because I have heard numerous times a difference in cables, especially interconnects. I've heard differences in. Now, that's a whole nother can of worms of subjective blah blah blah.
yeah, that's
But I
a
think
whole different episode right there. Yeah.
$30,000 cables make sense only if you got a ton of money and you want them and you like them. If you're buying them based on, but I think if you've got $10,000 speakers, $5,000 speakers, a 20 grand, 15 grand, 10 grand in your system, a few $100s on really good, well-made cables that are built well using proven science, that look nice. Even I use lifters on my 2-channel system. Why? Do I believe the dielectric and the blah blah blah? No, I don't buy it. I just don't. Now a lot of guys that I'm friends with do, and that's cool. However, they look cool, and they get my cables up off the ground and lift them up. So I am a big fan of cables, and
I just need cable lifters high enough so that my little robot vacuum can go under.
now amplifiers. I know, because you low rent. That's why. No. It's all subjective. If I'm going to buy a killer set of towers, a killer bookshelves, a system, I think it's pretty badass to have a nice set of cables coming off a killer amp. Why would everything not just be black and generic or white and generic? Like why do people build style into it? Because the aesthetics, the visual presentation is very important. If you say it's not, you must eat bologna sandwiches every day, because why would
The
you buy a
visuals
Ferrari?
absolutely matter. I want What's the company that makes the flat cables? Is it Nordost?
I've got Nordost cables. I got
Yeah, the flat one. I love those things.
they're cool.
They look so
They're
cool.
just really difficult to like keep from.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they get everything right.
I've had, and they're good cables. They sound good. I don't see anything wrong with it. It's like, why would you buy a Ferrari when you could buy a Corvette that has the same performance for a quarter of the price? Because it's different experience, dude.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because you're way cooler in a Ferrari than a Corvette could ever hope to be. Sorry, Corvette guys.
No, that's great. I will have a vet. I mean, my midlife crisis is in full effect, and I need a vet. I've given
at
up.
least they do mid body engine now, or whatever it's called.
They're cool.
Yeah, right on. Okay, so a couple more comments. I want to kind of keep up with these. Jason says, "Hey, I'm about to pull the trigger on a TCL 75 QM7. How do you like yours?" And he's looking at $13.99 Canadian. I like mine a lot, but it's 2025 now. So what I would recommend you do is look at the brand new QM6. So TCL, I think it's the first of their 25 models that they've released, and the new QM6 has the same technology or better than the 2024 QM7. So I don't know what the pricing looks like. It's available at least in the United States on their website, or at Best Buy. They don't sell direct. So wherever you can get TVs, these TVs are available. So just look at that one. I don't have one in for review yet. I don't know when or if I'll get one, but I'm hoping that I will. But that's going to be the question. Do you get the 2025 QM6 or the 2024 QM7? And what is the cost there? But yeah, I use that QM7, dude, every day. We love it. My boys use it now. My wife uses it. It's been a game changer. 100%.
Love it. Have to jump in on that 98-inch bandwagon.
Dude,
I've never fathomed buying a TV that wasn't a Sony or Samsung or LG, just because as an integrator, we've never had luck with off brands. But I guess we've reached a new stage in the game. You know what I
mean? They're not off brands anymore. They are the leaders. Wow. Well, at least for sales in the mass market, they're the leaders. There's something to be said for buying a top of the line Sony OLED.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean,
it's beautiful. I've got the Bravia 8 upstairs right now that I'm working on a review for, and it's stunningly beautiful.
Oh, Sony's just killer.
Yeah, stunningly beautiful.
And it has been since the 90s when I was at Circuit City 100 years ago selling TVs. You could see all the TVs, and then a Sony would stand alone to look twice as good. They always have.
Yeah.
They lost market share for a while. But anyways, no, it's exciting to see new players in the game, new products in the large scale of the video. But going back to, we were talking about TVs versus projectors. Yes, and a big formal theater, a 2.35-to-1, which I think if you're building a big theater is the way to go. I don't know why anybody still uses 16:9, unless even if you watch Netflix and stream, almost every show is in a ultra wide screen.
Yeah, they're wider than 16:9 every time.
And unless it's like something, sports, or I just don't know why you do it. And an acoustically transparent screen, especially if you have multiple rows of seating and you need that wide dispersion and that consistency, that is really that's the sauce for doing it. But that's morphed into, oh my God, if your center channel's horizontal, it sucks. Some of them do suck, but there's a lot of kick-ass horizontal center channels mounted properly that sound kick-ass. Would I use one in a big, 3-row theater? Probably not, unless it was up elevated behind an acoustically transparent screen. But for the majority of people, horizontal center channels work just fine. And most people don't have a million rows of seating, and they cover just fine. And a lot of this, talk that you hear all these internet trained experts who are now home theater gurus talking shit, that's what it is. It's just not the case.
I agree 100% on that one.
You want real talk from Uncle Don, or do you want some fluff? So
let's give him the hard sauce. All right,
hard sauce. No, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but
all right, Derek Harrell is here with us. Derek, I don't know if do we remember Derek rather? I'm sorry, from earlier.
No, Derek, but I like his humor and his wit. I think we can be friends.
Absolutely.
Your bases are now belong to us.
So,
I heard that
so Derek, if Derek if this is your first time, welcome.
Welcome.
All right. And Nick says digital room correction is the icing on the mole cake. It's not the mole, and people need to understand that. I don't know what that means. What is a mole cake?
Oh no.
All right, Nick. We are not following the mole cake. I know what icing on the cake is. It's not, but I don't know what the mole is. I like this comment. Hi-Fi Haven says Jiles, the home theater video rock. Yes. Ha! Thank you. Appreciate it.
The blue theater.
That one was done mostly. So Drake the producer did most of the work on that one. So he filmed it. Paxton did some filming on it, and Drake did about 80% of the edit on it too. So
so multiple systems I've had. Nobody's here saying digital calibration is not, it's the sauce. I mean, it gets you most of the way. It can get you a lot of the way. It can hear things you can't hear. And you can make an adjustment. You can place, there's a lot of great things getting the phasing correct. The distance is correct, is not always correct, but of course there's other things it's looking at, even though two speakers may be the same distance, how they interact with the room and the sound ultimately reaches your ears is different. But what I'm saying is don't be a mole.
That's what that is.
He does live in Colorado.
Oh, does he? Nice.
Yeah, there's no more better enhancement for 2-channel audio than cannabis. So allegedly, so I'm told. But don't be afraid to go in and make changes on it. Or if you're afraid to go do that, which some people are overwhelmed or don't know how to do it, have your calibrator make changes to the system that appeal to you, that you like. Don't be afraid to do that. Don't keep quiet because it's correct and I don't want to stand up.
That's right. Speak up.
You got that with your hard-earned money. You make that shit sound like you want it to sound, right? So the combination of that. Now, on many of my systems I've got some pretty high-end systems, multiple systems. I've had Dirac. I've used on some of them, some Odyssey. Man, I just never, ever, ever been satisfied with the end result from a calibration. Never. I mean,
I want you, when the next time you're out this way, you got to come.
Well, you're gonna fly me out. We're gonna.
Yeah, and I want to go through the Trinoff stuff with you, and let it run through, and then see where we go from there. I think that would be interesting.
It's good to a point.
Yeah.
But it's still.
I can't make it better. I just add more bass. That's what I have to do.
Well, but you add to it. Yeah, but you're talking about. Let's pull this back for a minute, right? 99.99% of people can't even fathom affording a Trinoff.
Sure.
I mean, what do they start at now? 20 grand for the 16?
Yeah, for the 16, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we did that one theater where we had the 48 channel with the extension on it, and that was $80-some thousand retail. It's incredible. You could do crossover points. I mean, the Trinoff is definitely the king. Storm makes a great product. There's Trinoff, and there's everything else, Storm would be right close to it, and who knows? That's
with the art, especially, yeah.
And Anthem, I think Anthem. If I was going to pick auto calibration besides the Trinoff for like more reasonable that people could attain to afford, I think the Anthem calibration does a really good job. It's probably the most livable for me if it's auto calibrated. Let's put it that way. It's
sure, right on.
It really is. But the point is, everybody is enthusiasts are being bombarded by the science, measurements, right? They're all important, huge important tools. These are the most important things right here. The smile on your face, like, wow, that's killer. Let that be your guide. Have the auto calibration or professional calibrators use these systems. REW is the ticket. Find out where the peaks and valleys. Try to deal with that digitally, but try to deal with it mechanically first, because any problem you can solve in a room mechanically is always better, in my opinion, than solving it digitally. The combination of that synergy of all that, listen to it, And if you want a few tweaks and changes on it, do not be afraid to do that. There is no police that are going to knock on your door and go, sir, we understand that you turn your subwoofers up, 6 dBs, and that just doesn't fall with this chart here. It's not. Make yourself happy. But every time you go on Facebook or Instagram or social media or YouTube, you got a talking head telling you, showing you charts that, let's just face it, most people don't understand what they are. They see lines and squiggles and waterfall charts and all that. But just all I'm saying is use your analog, use your ears, do the mechanical placement, learn about proper speaker setup, get your center channel off.
Don't say it.
The cabinet and back on the cabinet.
Oh, I like
unless you like hearing everything like this.
It sounds good. So
and
good.
There's interaction. Like the center channel interacts. When you got a cabinet, like at my house, I've got the world's biggest center channel now, and the speakers. I know there's interaction. I know that the TV interacts with it. I at some point you gotta be like, dude, I gotta watch. Gotta have a TV.
It's got to go somewhere.
I'm not putting the acoustic blanket over my TV every time I listen in 2-channel. Just get it to where you like it. And anybody that tells you none of that matters, measurements don't matter, none of that matters is you should know better than that. That's silly. But what I'm saying is don't be afraid to let what matters be your ears and not follow along on that. Does that make sense, Jiles?
It totally makes sense. I mean, ultimately, you were trying to please ourselves, right, and our families, and have a good experience. For me, so video is important, audio is important, all those things are important, but the most important thing is the experience that you have in the room, which is a combination of everything. Do you want to go experience something in your room? Is your family able to go and experience something in the room without you holding their hand, right? So that's important to me. And when you get all that stuff lined up where it looks great, sounds great, and then everybody can use it and enjoy it, then that's the triumvirate, right? That's what I'm looking for.
Triumvirate, huh? Wow.
The triumvirate. That's right.
Wow, Julius Caesar stuff.
Yeah. All right. Real quick, a couple more. We got a lot of comments. I want to make sure we plow through them. Abominous Black says, I love the tour. I'd love to own an Ava remote, but not being able to program it myself is a deal breaker.
That's a
dirty secret. Find somebody who sells them, have them log into the remote, and then after that, you can do whatever you want to it.
All right, here's a big secret.
I didn't tell you that.
Throw that away and buy a Control 4 controller and basic remote. Now you have the world's your oyster, and somebody's got to program it anyways. It's a much better option than Ava.
You promised that was going to be used. Once you got Ava, though, you can do it yourself. I'm not telling you that, but you can. All right, next up, C Big is with us. No.
C-Big, what up?
You just got to
have him over the house, man. I'm sorry, dude. It's been a hectic. I had to have a medical procedure that was pretty intense and this and that. So getting clear, I'm gonna have you over. We're gonna jam out. I got to take my 821s off the wall and figure out how to put them on stand so we're not gonna sit and listen to my surrounds when he comes over. Yeah, man, just like listening. And that should be some good subjects for subsequent streams that we have, Jiles, is like how important is the environment that you sit in? So being a high-end integrator, I work with designers and I work with lighting designers and I work with architects. And there's so much now that's being put into the environment, meaning your home. Like as an example, we're starting to do low voltage LED lighting versus not just LED bulbs, but LED tunable LED lights that go from 1800 to 3500 or whatever. Some of them are RGBW, and they're actually putting there's a thing called circadian rhythm, right? And you're starting to hear that more and more. Really, NASA did the immense research on that, meaning when people were up in a space station for extended periods of time, they studied how the natural sleep cycle and the sun and the lighting, which it does. I mean, for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, we've evolved, and like all of nature does it. Animals, bugs, plants, it all revolves around the circadian rhythm. So now they have lighting systems that when you turn them on in the morning, it mimics what your natural light would be outside. As the day progresses, the lights are brighter. when you come home at night and it's 7, 8 o'clock at night and you turn your lights on, it's a warmer light. And you're starting to see that because they're finding out more and more, the quality of the air, the scent in the room, texture on walls, texture on furniture, color of things, all has this tremendous effect. And you can even do it if you listen to 2-channel like I do a lot. Turn the lights down, have a little bit like the, glowing lights in the blue and the pink or white or whatever. Amber is a really good color, and really turn these lights down and listen. I can't even listen in bright light anymore. It drives me crazy. You know what I mean? It's really weird.
Yeah, if you need a special scent in your room, just let me know and I can bring that special smell. And to and occasionally at a hi-fi show, I've been known to, kind of subvertly add a little smell to the room. And people are like, oh my God,
that Dobbs guy, he's gonna be breaking gas in here. See the room out.
All right, a couple more comments and we'll get back to it. So there was a conversation around using ears to set up systems, and I'm going to skip through all of those and just Don, from your point of view, can you just use ears only to tune? And short answer. And is it good enough?
I can, but I've done hundreds of calibrations. Now, is it going to be as good as if I measured it? No. I mean, dude, come on. But I can take a SPL meter and a laser measurer and mechanically set things up and adjust levels and, check my phasing. I can even a lot of times get really close with my ears on the phasing on how the bass.
You can hear it if you know what you're listening for. Yeah.
The supernatural. No, dude. No, come on now. But is it ever going to be as good as it's done with measurements? No, it's just impossible. But I can make a damn good system sound damn good without any of that because I had to for a long time. Everybody did.
Yeah.
All right. You'd have the Radio Shack meter and stuff.
And talking about gear, so Van Gogh says, would a U-mic microphone be the way to go to calibrate? I like U-mics. I think they're great.
And now I know that Matt Pose likes to put, the microphones, there's a little insert that goes in the nipple that goes into it. And I guess there's a tremendous difference in quality on frequency response and whatnot.
If you put the little foam cover on it.
UMKs, yeah, and you can upgrade them for a lot of money, usually, these little inserts. But, Matt's really the super genius on that. But, yeah, UMK is fine.
Yeah, I mean, just like a U-mic 2, and then I think they have a U-mic Pro now, and I haven't played with that one, but yeah, just any of the modern U-mics, they're good.
They're reasonable.
They're good. Derek says it's important to get together with other enthusiasts and experienced theaters. Hear as many as you can. Absolutely.
I agree 100% because it's just, when you're into this hobby, you feel isolated sometimes because you want everybody, you're like, dude, check it out, man. And you get people over and you play a demo and you're like, fuck, it sounds great. And they're like, no, that's cool.
Yeah, that's all right.
Get a beer. You're like,
yeah.
All right, come on, guys. You want to come over and watch the new movie, new Avenger movie? Oh, man, it's cool. You can lead a horse to water, dude. I mean, the world runs on Sonos now, dude. Like,
yeah.
People are quite content and happy, and that's cool if you're content and happy. But if you get the bug, if you get to hear that really good demo, but he's right. The more systems you can hear, the more you're going to understand what you like or don't like. Does that make sense? The more exposure. I mean, you can only get so much from YouTube. I mean, we're on YouTube and I get it. Yeah. But there's only so much you can get that, you have to have the interaction and experience on it. I mean, you really do.
Yeah, it's good if you can find a hi-fi club or an AV club, whatever you're into, and just check out other people's stuff, right?
Hi-fi, the AV club.
No, dude, we got them around here. We have the Colorado Audio Society.
Pick me. No, the AV club.
Although there's this dude in the Colorado Audio Society. So I sold him a sound bar, and he comes back a year later and he's like, "Oh, you sold me a broken sound bar." I wanted to just just that. Oh, I don't sell it.
A lot of those are old men with hairy ears that listen to jazz.
Yeah, I don't know. That dude just all right. Question for you:
ever find jazz in any of my playlists?
So Don, what is the best Class D amplifier to drive some JTR 215 RTs?
Those are some killer speakers. They're really efficient. So, I mean, I like the NADs, make really good ones. I mean, the world's your oyster on those. They're real efficient. So, I'd say at least 200 watts of a really good Class D amp. I mean, Jeff makes a killer speaker. You ever listen to JTR speakers before?
I've never heard one ever anywhere.
They're one of the best speakers. I'm not a compression.
They're compression drivers, though, right?
Well, they are, but that's not my bag. But I do like those. They're not harsh.
They
remind me like JBL Synthesis, where they still have a lot of the dynamics and attributes of compression drivers. I find compression driver driven speakers to be a little hollow sounding to me. But those not so much. Even the Ascendos are really, really good as well. I would say a couple hundred watts. I mean, the more power you can put on, those things will take all the power you want. But NAD makes it really. The M23 2-channel has a really good Class D 2-channel amp. But there's a bunch of them out there, man. I would say, since you got so much in speakers, don't just buy the cheap, whatever, Buckhorn or Buckeye or whatever, companies that take modules and put them in a box and sell them. But really depends on your budget. Even those sound good,
they're not bad. The Buckeye stuff, it's pretty darn good. Great. For the money, man.
Are they going to be as good as an NAD? No, but they don't cost near as much either. So it's all, I'm a huge Class D guy. I don't care. I wanted to not like Class D, and we all had those same prejudices. Oh, they're for subwoofers, and they're digital, and that technology's been around since the 50s, man. Like
my whole home theater is Class D now. Everything,
almost everything in my house now is Class D. I think I've got one or two AB amps left, and they're big and they run high.
Yeah, I've got one A/AB on the floor over here, and that's it. I don't have any more tube amps either. Those are. Oh, I've got one. It's not plugged up though.
It's a niche and a hobby, just like turntables. Like my good friend Xavier, work with the Audioholics, Captain Analog, loves turntables, man. He's an artist, dude. He's got he comes in like a doctor and shit with a kit, and he's got like the thing. He looks at them up close and adjusts, and he makes them sound like 3 times better. I don't know what all kind of magic he does, but it works. He's like the Harry Potter of that, but
I think he can make it sound almost as good as a CD.
To me, it's annoying to me to get up and open a record and clean it and turn on the turntable and set it on, and I can't skip, and I can't, That's why I'm Digital Don. He's got analog.
There you go.
To me, there's streaming, and then everything else is archaic. I don't listen to CDs anymore. I got CD players. I don't listen to reel. Yeah, a lot of people do. It's cool. If that's your bag, man.
Yeah, it's got to be your hobby, though.
That nostalgia, and you got a lava lamp and a classic receiver in your turntable. That's cool. I've got turntable. I've got all that. Nothing wrong with it. Just I like to sit down, get comfortable, and get in the right frame of mind, and stream, dude. And having basically every song ever made known to man in high resolution at your fingertips on your phone or your remote. Come on, dude. Like, really?
Pretty crazy.
Really?
Pretty crazy. All right. Cable comment. GR Research has some badass cables for great value, and they just did some new RCAs. All right. That's cool. Thanks, Nick. Van Gool looked up the 75-inch QM6K, which is $1,299. So I guess that is the 2025 model. So I don't know if I guess that's USDs. I don't know what that would be in CNDs or whatever the Canadian dollars are. Nick says first gen Sony Bravia that dropped when Blu-ray arrived in 1080p was revolutionary. Dude, Sony's always been at the front.
1080p, remember, well, I don't know how long you've been doing it, but when 1080p came out,
I remember.
Big rage. You had to have a TV that was 1080p. Had to have it. Next year, had to have it. Next year, had to have it. We ever going to get any 1080p content? Well, it's coming. It just like everybody's like 8K. You see where 8K is? Anybody even talk about 8K?
Forever away 8K content.
Come on.
Yeah.
I had people that, I'm holding off to buy the 8K TVs. Really, dude? You're gonna be holding off for a while. You might get hit by a car. Enjoy.
Nick says he's the Australian nut
Yeah,
with the
yep.
GTRs.
Dude, I love Aussies. Like
Um,
coolest people pretty much out there, dude. You ever hung out with the Aussies? They're just awesome.
a little bit, not too much, but a little bit.
Yeah,
Bill says D-Sonic or Buckeye for big power. All right. C big, if you sit 12 foot back from an AT screen, left right speaker behind the screen will be 9/6 apart, or left right speaker will be 12/6 apart if the left right speaker is outside of the screen. Would you go wide or narrow with the speakers? If you're 12 foot away, do you do 9/6 or 12/6 apart?
It depends on the speaker.
Yeah, just
Depends on your baffle wall behind it, how it's built. But I sit roughly almost 12 feet from my tower speakers in my main bigger system, and they're about from tweeter to tweeter is about 9 feet. So, and then I like to experiment. I start off off axis and listen, play the same song, then I go an inch and listen again. It gets monotonous. Then go in and listen and go in and listen, making little notes and kind of find that sweet spot. I mean, you can design it, if you're a theater designer. That's why a lot of speakers have very controlled directivity. Per listen, a JBL synthesis, JTR, horn loaded speakers have very controlled directivity, relatively narrow vertical directivity, very wide horizontal directivity. That's why we were always taught to do absorption on the first reflection points so that you didn't get that room bounce. That, however, many people like and prefer to have that first reflection room bounce, depending on how wide your walls are, depending on your speakers, and depending on music. A lot of times speakers are kind of designed to take advantage of that room bounce. As an example, Dolly speakers, which I have a pair of their previous generation flagship, the Epicon 6s, Dolly's very adamant about when you place their speakers, place them straightforward off axis. They are designed to sound their best off axis. Now you want to bring them off the side wall, but with that interaction, that's kind of what they're built to do. So would that mean that they measure poorly? Maybe. Or they don't measure perfectly, but you put them in a room. Do they sound good? Hell yeah. It really depends. So that was a really good question.
I think you could go either way on it. Try them both. I know that's a horrible answer, but
no,
I think you'd be fine either way.
Yeah, I mean, then there's a lot of people. I saw this guy on Facebook a while back. Speakers in a corner pointing directly on axis. There's this way, then everything else is wrong. Man, shut up, dude. Really? Back when I was young, it was all about how wide can you get your speakers. The wider you get them, the better the stereo sound is. It's just not true. There's no set formula on it. Now, most manufacturers in their paperwork, which is usually very, like a Focal or Paradigm or whatever, not real specific about it because it's subjective. When I had these 1528s in my system, I tried them off axis, moved them in all the way to on axis, moved them back out, moved them back in. So I found about 3.5, 4 degrees roughly being the sweet spot where I got really wide soundstage, really great imaging, but still the wider you put them sometimes, the less detail you get in the middle of that. You might get a wider soundstage, but you're going to lose some of that detail of instrument placement, singer placement, and whatnot. So really, you got to play around with it. I don't know of any piece of equipment to measure that. I just don't. I don't know how you would.
Yeah.
I mean, you could probably measure nuances and, minor nuances and stuff. But I mean, like stuff like Aaron's doing where he shows the directivity patterns and stuff. If you know what you're doing and you actually are honest with yourself and those can be valuable tools to help you evaluate what you're going to do with the speaker in a room or why it's reacting or sounding the way it is. So therefore, the measurements are a valuable tool. This is a more valuable tool. The combination of the two, good old fashioned hard work, sweat equity, moving, listening, and we could do a whole thing stream on how to listen, like what kind of music to play.
Yeah.
What to look for.
We should put together some playlists and then do that one and talk about it. I think that would be good.
I've got a ton of playlists.
Yeah.
I just did
You should do that.
Arendal playlist and posted it up on their Arendal website. So
is that did you do that one in Tidal or Qobuz or
I did it in both Qobuz and Tidal. My preference being Qobuz. I do use Tidal a lot. I have for years. Here's why. Like on paper, Qobuz has more bandwidth. But in reality, I really can't tell a huge difference in the sound quality on some songs, maybe a little bit. But then again, that you get in the whole, it's your placebo. But Qobuz has more high resolution, high res songs. Their library is now caught up. But more importantly, David Solomon and the people at Qobuz, huge supporters of the audio community.
There's no other company like them.
There's nothing like them.
do. David is at every show.
And you know Dave, don't you? I mean, he's
he's a good guy, super good guy,
good human being. But so I will always default to Qobuz being my first choice. Now I have Apple Music, I have Amazon. I mean, I got them all, and I just think the Qobuz and Tidal are what I end up with.
Yeah.
Now Tidal does do some great things, like their algorithms are great. Like you can go to a song on Tidal and create a playlist off either the artist or the song. That's a really good playlist too. So
that's cool. Yeah, I'm Qobuz, but I do it all through Rune, and I use their UI, and then they're picking technology. Yeah,
but Rune is higher end audiophile centric type.
Yeah, it's so awesome though. Anyway, all right, so let's do some cleanup, right? So we got to do our house cleaning right now for the channels. So first off, if you have not subscribed to Don's channel, there's a link in the notes. YouTube at Digital Don AV. Go and subscribe.
For 300 subscribers now.
Yeah, go and hit the button. Make sure you're subscribed there. If you're here and you're not subscribed to my channel, it's on the screen at Jiles McCoy. So you can go to YouTube and look for at Jiles McCoy, and you'll find me. Please subscribe to that. This episode is brought to you by Samsung. The new Samsung S25 is now available. If you're interested in pre-ordering, you can get a great deal. Links below.
What is that? Is that TV?
Cell phone. It's just the new Samsung, cell phone. Oh. Samsung S25 Ultra. Pre-order now.
Well, people still use those phones?
Oh, heck yeah. I film almost all my videos on them. The S24. I don't have the S25 yet because apparently I don't make the list to get the early samples for cell phones. However,
that's your bag.
However, I was just invited by Samsung to come to New Jersey to their QA factory place and do a tour and film some content out there. So I'll probably be going in
Jersey.
April.
Papers, March. Please. The People's Republic of New Jersey requires papers.
Yes. So I'm looking forward to that one. So that's good. What other housekeeping is there to do? But no, links down below for all of our stuff. Subscribe to Don. Please subscribe to Jiles. Check out the Samsung stuff. At least click on the link.
I have a new weekly live stream.
Yes.
Every Monday, 8:00 Eastern on Audioholics. It's my live stream. I'm going to have Jiles on. I'm going to have a multitude of, I got some cool guests lined up. I'm going to have Aaron from Aaron's Audio Corner. Friend of mine, super cool dude, changing the industry. We're going to dig deeper into this measurement and listening and perception. And I'm going to have Jay from, Jay Agi, who's just a phenomenal dude. I'll always have Shane Lee on, but I'm going to have, I'm going to do a show on measurements and all these things that everybody gets inflamed about. I'm going to have actual speaker designers that work for manufacturers on, and we're going to talk about crossovers and why, everybody wants to shit on crossovers when a lot of companies design crossovers very small to get out of the way of the music. And there's a whole industry being built on, you got to have this monster crossover. A lot of companies that actually make their own drivers and cabinets and have complete control of it do that. I think it'd be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'd be awesome.
Just to clear the air a little bit, because things are getting a little out of hand on some of these things. And you put up a new speaker, it's like, I want the objective measurements and what's the compression testing of it? Whoa, back off, dude. Like, let me listen to it. Slow down. I know you're programmed to say that, but and there's plenty of guys out there doing it,
Right on. Cool. Well, we are at time, and I think we're going to go ahead and put a stake in this one. Any closing thoughts for the folks out there?
Well, Nicholas has asked me if I
Oh.
want to get Danny Ritchie on.
Oh, there we go.
I'd love to have Danny on. I kind of like Danny, you know. I mean, I don't agree with everything Danny says, but Danny's an old school audio guy like I am, and I think we could have a pretty, you know, good, robust conversation if you get Danny on. But, you know, everybody's got their niche, man, you know.
Right on. Cool. Well, first off, for the folks that are watching, thank you so much for joining. It's been a pleasure to have you on, and thank you for the questions. Don, thank you for joining me to co-host the show tonight. It's always a wonderful pleasure. And then I'm going to nerd out here. Sorry, this is where we diverge from the hi-fi.
No, totally.
Robotech right here, baby. That's right.
He approves.
The new generation. It's the Cyclone robot transforming armor. Just got it in. Been wanting one forever, and they just came out with a new model. It's going to be on my shelf in the theater. And I'm going to walk down. I'm going to look at it and be like, "That's my thing." So awesome. It's good times.
Nerd alert.
Nerd alert. It's so
Nerd
good.
alert.
All right, folks. Thank you. And we'll see you Monday at 8 Eastern.
That's right.
On Don's Audioholics, and on Tuesday, right here for Theater Talk Tech Live. All right. Take care, buddy. See ya.
Thank you very much.